And so here we're just continuing to fill in the rest of these gaps. This can get pretty tedious depending on the study, depending on how much we call them ghost markers is floating around in the back, what is blocking cameras, creating gaps, and just take some time to go through and fill all of these. And so again, we're just kind of double checking to make sure that markers look like they're going in the right spot. Nothing is kind of stretching or shrinking or moving to weird positions where it's not really supposed to be. Alright, so now that we have all those gaps filled and that's cleared out over on the right, we want to go through and play through the movement and just make sure everything looks good again, that we're not missing anything, no gaps. Those blue and green lines kind of show, since that marker is highlighted, it's kind of showing the pattern of movement that it's going through, especially when they jump. You can see the trajectory of that marker. And so next, what we're going to do is we're going to choose the pipeline that we're going to run it through in order to save the trial. And so you can see we have a lot that are made for different studies. And so when we run it through this pipeline, the goal is to delete any markers in the environment that aren't labeled. And so this eliminates some of those ghost markers from showing up in our trial, especially when we move it to process a little later on. And so when we run it through this pipeline, it saves the trial as well. And so then we have a fully finished dynamic trial. So we run it through this. It takes a few seconds to kind of run through that whole process. So now that that pipeline is complete, we're going to run it through another pipeline real quick. And so what we can do during this is select multiple dynamic trials that we have collected, and we're able to run them through the same pipeline all at once, which we used already earlier to reconstruct the first initial trial. And so we're just going through and selecting the specific trials that we want. Some of them in the notes right there are marked NG, which is not good. It's typically when a participant didn't complete a trial fully or not in the way that was anticipated or asked. So we're going to go through and avoid those, but select all the movement trials that we want at once. And we can run all of those through the pipeline in order to process them all more efficiently. And so when we do this, it gives us these options. We want to unselect delete unmarked trajectories because all of those markers that aren't labeled will get deleted, and that would basically get rid of all of the raw data that hasn't been processed. So then we go through and run that process for all of those trials that we selected. And we can come over and kind of split this screen a little bit, and we can bring those files all over on the side, apply a reconstruct pipeline, and then that is going to, we call it batch processing, do all of those files that we selected over time. It's going to run through those without us physically having to go through each one. And so with that process, once we have those run through, the only steps that we have to do is go back through and continue the gap filling process, which saves us a lot of time from having to go and relabel and rename each one of those markers every single time. And so we're going to unmark all of these now that we know that they're done and they show that they're processed. And so that is how we get through our Vicon processing, and then those files will then be selected and moved over into Visual 3D, and we can go ahead and continue onto our secondary step of processing those.